Good morning. This is Nata Feinstein with Hasidic Nurses Notes. And this is the 13th of the month of March and the 24th of the month of Adar. So coming up is the holiday of Passover. That's on the 15th of the month of Nisan. So we're less than a month away. And with that, even though this is primarily a Noahide presentation, I want to talk about Passover for another number of reasons. So before we start, just want to make a statement that I'm a nurse, registered nurse. I'm not a doctor. Hopefully, I'm a Hasidic Jew, but I'm not a rabbi, and I follow the teachings of the best Lubavitcher Rebbe. So therefore, with that in mind, I'm kind of giving my opinion on things that as I've seen through what learning I've done, people, the situations I've been around, and in the religion atmosphere, and in the professional, healthcare atmosphere. So to go on from that, I'm going I'm doing this now because I feel kind of an urgency, um, because with the holidays coming up, there's also a holiday around the same time of year from another religion. And those who have been involved in the other religion um, are quite aware that there's a lot of activities, a lot of ritual. And although how would you say, the activities are perhaps not relevant anymore, but, there's still probably lingers in a person that the need to have rituals to connect with God in some way, and also to have community activity um, based with people who think like you do and who are looking like you are for the truth and the relationship with God. So I'm not trying to compare either of those religions by any means, but it just happens to be some coincidence. And I've been working with the Noachites, I'm sure, for at least 8 years, off and on, as a volunteer, so to say. And with that in mind, I want to emphasize that the reason I got started, I mean, really actually got started, was because of Noahide. There was an existing group up in Canada where I was living, or that's the Canadian scene, and the Laurentian Mountains, and done by an artist we know. So these people had found Noahide pretty much on their own, developed a group, and were looking for well, they were hoping for rabbinical guidance. Um, and that and put that in mind, that I was shown a film a couple of years after my start by a person who was doing a lot of research with Noahide and traveled around the world seeing what was being done. And they showed a video that they had taken in the Philippines, where the community, the people were located, had no Jewish institution whatsoever, but they, through their own deduction and learning and experiences, felt that the Torah and the Torah ways were the way to go. I'm sure it's not unfamiliar to many of you. So what did they do? They pictured what they could from the readings, from magazines, from um, video, presentations, and they've kind of developed their community. Not they community They actually developed a community, and their dress was like Hasidic, you know, black hats, beards, black coats, and they learned a lot of the songs in the Orthodox Jewish mainstream, and they would have extensive prayer services based on the prayer book. The Orthodox prayer book is available to them, and they took it very, very seriously. And my understanding is that finally a rabbi came into the area. I believe it was a Lubavitcher Shliach, a representative, And they said, we've been waiting for someone like you to come because we have all this desire and all the information that we could glean on our own, but we need somebody to get us into really the direction and refine this. And they built a shul for him. And he began that route of clarifying and teaching and developing. So, with that point in mind, I have to compliment Noachites because a lot of what they've done, where they come, is from their own initiative. Now, again, with my, I have been giving classes for a number of years, small groups, sometimes on video. With COVID, we had to go to video exclusively. Although we were developing a group where we met regularly, and we even had sort of we met out of the out of the venue of a religious institution, just sort of have like a social meeting with learning. And throughout this time in other areas, there's a frustration that it's had because seemingly Noahide has a lack of, say, the spiritual, ritual aspects of it. It's pretty much straightforward. Um, I would say intellectual mitzvahs, how else to put it, and they feel lacking in that. There's something missing. They can't go back to the old life. They don't want to go back to the old life. And as many of you are aware, the Orthodox Judaism doors are not wide open with people ready to receive you or fund you or anything like that with programs. It's isolated events which are growing. The Lubavitcher Rebbe pushed it for many years in the 70s and the 80s. And so where are we at with that? So I recently had someone speaking to me pretty strongly about the fact that there needs to be more organization, there have to be more programs, more classes, and sensitivity. And I can understand how you feel, but I want to go back to the fact that many Noachites, have started it up on their own. And not only that, even with Jews, um, they don't want to organize. They organize and they contact a rabbi. I mean, very rarely will you have a rabbi move into a place. I mean, I've seen it. I have a relative that did it, where there was hardly any activity or any demand, but they saw the potential and they moved in because they felt that they could develop it. But that seems to be the exception to the rule. So I will say that Noachites want more activity, that they have to realize that it's in their hands, a lot of it, in the natural course of things, the way things have developed. And again, I'm a compliment wherever you are and where you come with this. So going forward with that I want to touch on ritual and prayer. So although you don't see in the seven mitzvahs ritual and prayer, but prayer is strongly, implied to the relationship with God, done presented in the negative commandments as not to have other gods and not to blaspheme, not to curse God, God forbid. So therefore, prayer fits in there, very well. And not only that, to do the other mitzvahs of the Noahide, you're talking about, it's not a casual thing. I mean, people don't go out on the whole, God forbid, murder and steal and again to break down the families. But nevertheless, um, there are, how to say, offshoots. There's question of courts of justice indicates peace, which I can go into more. But prayer is really essential. And I'll tell you a story that I heard, and I looked it up to verify it. That there was Lubavitcher Shliach, a representative of the Rebbe, who had an appointment with a prime minister of the country. I believe it was a prime minister of the country, yes. And he wanted to bring something, a token of appreciation, and he decided to bring a Kiddush cup, the silver cup for wine that we make the blessing on holidays and the Sabbath. And they're very nice looking, and had a touch of the spiritual question. And they presented this to the Rebbe, what they're going to, with whom they're going to meet and what they're going to bring. And the Rebbe said, "What's the prime minister going to do with that? The Sabbath is not in the holidays are not in the framework of the seven mitzvahs." He said, "Better give him a prayer book of Siddur, which indicates that prayer is definitely, a piece of Judaism for the Noachites." And for anybody I have mentioned this too, I had to understand what myself more what Noachite or Noachites are, and I think with the help of I don't know, I'm afraid to give names because I don't want to misquote anybody, but I was listening to a rabbi who was very knowledgeable and makes presentations. He said, in essence, that Noachite is Judaism for people who are not Jewish. So we have Noachites and people who are Jewish, Jewish by means of either a Jewish mother or by Orthodox conversion. So I'll use those terms that in Judaism when I'm speaking about Noachites because it's a branch part of Judaism as I picked up. Right? So going on from that prayer is available. And what about ritual? Well, a lot of ritual is developing a relationship with God. So you have the prayer, but what about the holidays and the things that go with the holidays? Um, Remember, all mitzvahs, positive or negative, are from God. And at this point, I want to emphasize that when we're talking about, say, use the word religion, that according to Judaism especially, this is not man's attempt to develop a relationship with God. The mitzvahs, these, what to do, not to do, the outlook, these are directives from God given to the Jewish people through Moses, which include the Noahide laws. So if these are directives from God, it's not like some man has said, well, we Jews will do this, or some group of rabbis, and the Noachites will do this. It's not arbitrary. This is from God. And what God asks you to do pleases him when you do it and develops your relationship with him. As a matter of fact, uh, what you see in the media or on the street for Judaism looks to be ritual. But you'll find out that much of what we do involves relationships between man to man. You have relationships between man and God and man to man. All of these are God's commandments, but how the where you locate the activity, primarily the man to God or man to man. So much and much of Judaism is man to man. And so what you see on the television or your people putting on things for prayers, people going to prayers, it's only a part of Judaism. As a matter of fact, once you get into that arena, it's not just a part; it's a very serious um, pursuit or requirement, which involves daily commitment without question and change of lifestyle for many. And people have gone from either not being Jewish to convert, or people who were Jewish who weren't aware of their backgrounds, and they finally, whatever the course was, became religious. There often is required a very big change in lifestyle. That can include careers, where you live, how you live. So Noach has what Judaism has, a lot of the mitzvahs between man and man. And this really deals with making the world a better place to live in. And this is a primary goal of God. The Lubavitcher Rebbe, emphasized this fact very strongly, even though it's not in the often presented aspects of Jewish Torah, but it's in Torah that God desires a dwelling place here in this world where he can be revealed. It has to be suitable and fit, and people capable of receiving the revelation of God, like it was right after the creation of the world. And this we look for under the guidance and the instigation with Messiah, Mashiach. So God wants to return to the world and be revealed as much as man can tolerate. And man is given the opportunity to partnership, to be a partner with that. God didn't need man, but he created man and was part of the creation. So saying I'm going to be Jewish or I'm going to be a Noachite is not to say I'm accepting a religion. I'm going to follow religion. It says it's really I'm going to take a code of conduct, mental, spiritual, verbal, emotional, which reflects God, satisfies God, required by God. So therefore, if we start categorizing whose mitzvahs are what, that it's not really doesn't fit the program. The program is what God wants, not what we think God wants or what God should want. And some of the stuff we've been programmed from our youth that this is a religion. This is what should be a religion. So again, the mitzvahs of the Noachite, we have the first two of no idol worship, and then not blaspheming, not cursing God. Then we get into man and man, not murder, not steal, laws of adultery, which essentially, um, among other things, secures the family. And as one social worker, if not more, have said, one of the greatest problems for everybody is family breakdown. So this is treasured by Noachide, is needed by the world. The law of flesh from a living animal, we can discuss the ramifications of that. So presented basically as not cruelty to animals, which is a kind of indication of the culture. Also, explained to me is like also how we eat, which is also indication of culture. I don't know if you're going to find that explanation. I can go into depth later. But nevertheless, it's a refinement of a culture and then courts of justice. And although they are designed initially to enforce the Noachites, um, I've heard it presented, and it's not unlogical to say that a justice system ensures that what we hope for is peace in the world and safety in the world, without going into much more depth. So, talking about what the Jews are doing, I make you aware. Maybe some of you are aware of it, may not, but there are Jewish institutions all over and historically designed for man helping man. I mean, charity is a basic one, and there are charities out there for people to get food. And there is, Bikur Cholim, which is visiting the sick. Well, that's very much expanded. Some of the societies for visiting the sick are very, very extensive. They have a lot of influence to get proper care to patients and get proper support to patients, not only from the hospital institution itself, but from the community. You know, even like a woman who delivers, there's, you know, organizations to support them uh, during the first week or two, or not more, even before. And there are loan societies. So people help. They said one of the greatest demonstrations or levels for the mitzvah of charity, for the deed of charity. One of them is the top one almost. There are many other ones. Is to get a person on his feet. Um, you could say buy a person tools so he could go out and be a craftsman. So help him get his tools, make him a loan. So there's loan societies, and there's societies for care to the elder and for children with problems. Check with any like Jewish Federation and see the divisions there, and you'll see man to man is an extensive aspect of Judaism and a precious one. And as a matter of fact, um, in Jewish learning, you'll find that if a person has to make a choice of doing a mitzvah between man and man and God, and there's no other way to discharge that mitzvah between man and man, then you have to, on the whole, all these exceptions, but on the whole, the mitzvah for man and man takes priority. There's a very famous story of a person who was learning intensely Torah. It was almost his total occupation, and he was really serious at it. And someone came into the house of study and said, "My wagon is stuck in the mud, and it's raining, and I have all my merchandise, and I need help to get the wagon out. I'm desperate. I'm going to be ruined." And there was no one else there. And the person who was learning said, "I'm sorry, I'm in the middle of Torah learning." And this is Torah learning is like, you know, one of the highest things you can be doing. And you can expect me to interrupt. And as the story goes, he was expected to interrupt, and he should have, or he interrupted. Now, if there's someone else that can do it, can help them, man, okay. But he's just trying to show you the importance in Jewish learning, Jewish tradition of man helping man. Excuse me.